Welcome back, guys. Today was the fourth round of the Croatian Team Chess Championship, and I had the black pieces against a Turkish player born in 2004, Akbas Umut Ata. As you can see, his rating is 2460. Generally, he's having quite a good tournament. He beat Motilev with the white pieces as well, and has a pretty well-established repertoire overall based on 1d4. And for today, I thought I would surprise him by going for the King's Indian. Some of you might know I recorded a King's Indian course for ChessBase in the summer, which is going to come out in the next few weeks, I hope. I didn't speak to the ChessBase team about that, but it should definitely come this year. And in that game, I actually played one line which I'm giving in my course, which has not been released yet, so I completely caught my opponent off guard, as you can see. King's Indian, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6. And I haven't played the King's Indian for many years now, but I put so much work into the course that I thought it was more than fine to go back to it. I mean, as you know, playing it on a high level regularly can be difficult, but even players like Ivan Šarić, who I just played 2 rounds ago, he also played the King's Indian today against another grandmaster. And there are some players that do make it possible. Like, obviously, you need to be well prepared in some lines and have some practical ideas. But generally, like, if you have a good understanding of the structures and of the general ideas, even on quite a high level, you can certainly play it frequently. My opponent was visibly surprised and tried to surprise me back by playing the 4 pawns attack with f4, which he has never played before. Which tends to be kind of a line which is a little bit independent, because quite often in all of the lines in the King's Indian, black will always play short castle and then e5. And it will very often lead to these d5 structures. And with f4 it's a bit different, because things tend to be a little bit more concrete than that. I played short castle, knight f3, and here I played the move which I also recommend in my ChessBase course, e5, which completely caught him off guard. He told me after the game that he hasn't seen that move before even. And also just checked some messages. Generally, people are familiar with the e5 idea, but more with black starting with knight a6, which I've also considered to recommend in my course, but there were some details why I wanted to go for e5. Because sometimes it can be a little bit more flexible. The main line here is the move c5, and after d5, e6, bishop e2, take on d5. There's a lot of theory here, rook e8 and e5, and it goes on something like this, I believe, and white goes e6, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That should be the line here. And it gets very sharp, and black needs to know a couple of things. I would never enter this from the black side. Like, if I would reach this position, I would probably go for knight d7. I think that's a move here. Is it knight d7? I believe so. And then this type of position, short castle, rook e8, and this should also be playable generally for black, and it's just a typical Benoni position. But since I presented this for my course and I was mostly familiar with that, I just stick to e5. And he was not familiar with it, so he took with the d pawn, which generally is probably not the most critical approach. The main line goes f takes e5, d takes e5, and now d5. And now black's idea is to go for knight a6. There are a couple of nice ideas here. For example, white can immediately go wrong with the logical move bishop e2. There are still a couple of games here. If I remember this correctly, there is this trap with knight takes e4 and bishop f5. And all of a sudden, white is in a lot of trouble here. f5, and I think after bishop takes f5, rook takes f5 was extra strong here, if I remember that correctly. I didn't even check this since I basically recorded the course, but it is all in my memory because I presented it on the video and tried to explain the ideas there. So generally, when you do this, the ideas very often stick. At least that's kind of my experience. The most critical approach is probably bishop d3 here, and I'll not go into too much detail here, but yeah, I can tell you one thing here. After c6 short castle, I recommend the move bishop d7 and then followed by rook c8. This is my recommendation here. The idea was not to commit to knight c5 immediately, because then white can attack the knight with bishop e3, and if white would go bishop e3 here, it would already be imprecise because of knight g4, and black is probably taking over because white never really wants to give away this dark squared bishop. And if it moves, then there would be queen b6, which would be highly unpleasant for white. So my opponent took d takes e5, d takes e5, and now this is connected with a pawn sacrifice. But if black is precise, he will get very, very decent compensation, and white is actually the one that in some of the lines needs to be careful. Knight takes e5, here I did not know anything anymore. I also just checked this move was not analyzed in my course. The only line which I remembered and which I also analyzed was after queen takes d8, rook takes d8, now knight takes e5. And here I recalled that black is supposed to go for b6 here. And I think that there was this line here. Again, I did not check this, knight b5 or knight d5. This one I did not see now. I did not control my thoughts, but I think that this was my analysis here. And then black gets a very strong attack with some checkmate threats. Knight c2 check, king e2, bishop g4 ideas are already there. Like if white tries to save the knight, just as an example, this would be quite a nice checkmate. So this works if white takes on d8 first, but he took immediately. And now after queen takes d1, king takes d1, I played the move rook d8, which is not the most precise move, but I could not figure out what else I should do. The other idea I was looking at was knight a6 immediately, but I thought it would be practically unpleasant for him because he doesn't know the position, and I was quite sure that king c2 should be the move here when we are actually transposing to another line here, which I will talk about in a second after knight a6. But my gamble kind of, I mean, not like a gamble because the position here is still playable. It paid off because he went for bishop d2, and here I'm already very comfortable. Actually, what I'm supposed to do here, I check this with the stronger engine, is to move rook e8 in this position, which honestly I did not consider for a second. The idea is now that if white goes for something like bishop e2, I want to go knight fd7, then take with the bishop, and then there's a lot of pressure on the e4 pawn. I can also go for bishop c6 next, but this is quite difficult to understand in a game, I would say, so I should have definitely included this in my course too. Knight a6 might also be a tad bit more flexible at this point. Why is this? Yeah, now it's better. Knight a6 is another possibility, but in the game I thought that now if he moves the bishop, then maybe he can go with the king to c1, so that's why I did not go for it. So here after king c2 we are actually transposing to another line, which I wanted to talk about. If you go knight e6 immediately, there is, how is it again, bishop e2, e5, take on e5, take, knight takes e5, and I think now we have the transposition here. And we should get this exact position through the other line, if I'm not wrong. Rook d8, king c2, knight a6, and yeah, if white goes bishop e2 now. I wasn't fully aware with the details here. I remembered that it's okay for black, but it was not my favorite choice. And again, that's why it's better here to go for the move rook e8. Because you need to, I mean, also for white, it's quite dangerous. Let me try to reconstruct it. I think it was knight c5, bishop f3. And if it's possible, knight takes e4. I need some help with the engine here. Knight takes e4, bishop f5 is obvious, rook e1. But now I just could not remember a single thing, because I was calculating rook d4 in the game, but then I didn't see how it continues after bishop e3, which turns out to be correct. Because I have to give the exchange, but then it's probably just not enough for me. White can go king d2 or king c3, for example. So what am I supposed to do here? Bishop takes e5, f takes e5, and then rook d4. With the point that if bishop e3 comes now, then I can take on c4. That's the whole idea. So how does it go? Yeah, what I didn't like here is that white can repeat the moves like this. This was kind of my main problem. White can also try to play on like this, but here it's probably okay. But this was kind of my main issue, because I never really wanted to recommend something in my course where white can white has the choice to repeat the moves. Anyway, that was not what happened in the game. He played bishop d2, now knight a6 anyway, bishop e2, knight c5, knight f3, just kind of the only way for him to protect the e4 pawn. And here I went for a very thematic and also nice move, the move g5. And at this point I was feeling extremely optimistic, because the position felt very hard for him to play. And here he also spent half an hour on his next move, which made me even more optimistic, because now he was down to 30 minutes after only 13 moves. And I realized that here I'm certainly better already. After g5, the main thing is that, well, you might ask, why not f takes g5, which was also what I was looking at first, and then I thought, well, maybe knight takes e4. And some position like this should probably be fine, because if king c2, there's bishop takes b2. But then I realized after f takes g5, I actually have a winning move, which might be quite easy to miss, the move knight e8. And all of a sudden his knight on e5 doesn't have any squares left except for the g4 square. Then I take on g4, then I take on c3, and then I take on e4, and then I'm just winning the piece on d2. I thought that was quite a nice nice trick, which unfortunately he did not fall into. So he played h3 to avoid g4. Generally g5 has two ideas. First of all, I want to play g4, then the bishop has to move, and then I can take on e4. And secondly, I want to undermine his center so that I can take on f4 on the right, at the right moment. I think that computer gives that g3 is the best move, but that was quite difficult to understand. My intention was to take on f4, bishop h6. Now, if he moves the king, I'm already winning because I have rook d2 and bishop f4, and I have two pieces for the rook and the dark squared bishop, which should just be winning for me. And if he goes rook g1 check, king f8, I think we were both calculating knight d5 and now knight c takes e4, when it also looked very difficult for white. I just cannot take knight f takes e4, I thought, because then bishop b4 comes, and then I have some issues with this pin, and bishop takes e4 is a threat. For example, if c6, bishop takes e4, c takes d5, bishop takes e5 with a check, and I'm a piece down, and I'm probably also going to get checkmated here with rook g8 to come. So, but after knight c takes e4, it seemed pretty bad for white, because I'm threatening to take here and then go c6, for example, and his king is more weak than mine is on f8. And I think that the computer came up with this defense here, rook g5, kind of the only move to continue fighting, which we both did not see at all, just giving the exchange back like this. But also here, white is certainly not playing for an advantage here. I mean, maybe it's close to being enough compensation, but surely should not be more than that. Computer gives around 0.0, but it's already in the tendency towards black. So practically speaking, as I said, it was already quite difficult here. Also, I thought that after g3, I actually have a couple of interesting moves. Like I was also thinking of bishop h3, which I wouldn't have gone for probably in the end, with the idea to prepare g4 without allowing bishop g2. Also, the move like bishop e6, for example, felt interesting, or something like c6. I see now that the computer gives knight g4, which I did not think about on this occasion. And here, in the end, I'm regaining the piece like this. And it should also be equal. King c1, knight takes d2, and then something like this. But yeah, anyway, taking on f4 and bishop h6 would have surely been the best try, and I would have gone for that. So my opponent went for h3 with the idea to avoid g4. I pretty quickly took on f4, which is also the best move. After the game, we were also talking about h5 at this point, and he was also not sure what he would do here. The idea is just to, again, renew the threat of going g4. He mentioned one interesting idea, which is now to sacrifice the piece, but we both thought that this should not be enough for him. Like something like king g8, and my pieces are just way more active than his. Even though he has 4 pawns, his king is just in a lot of trouble. Another thing which I'm just thinking now after g3, if I take now on bishop h6, if white has a better version here with rook g5, because then this pawn on h5 could be hanging. On the other hand, the pawn on h3 could be hanging as well. It probably doesn't make a huge difference at this point. Like something like this, and then h5 and h3 are going to be exchanged. Still, probably black is to be preferred here, but it's yeah, white has compensation. But why I didn't play h5 was if he moves the king, for example, if king c2, I thought. Now, if g4, I didn't like the fact that he has the open h file. Actually, that was incorrect here. Bishop e2 here, black is better. White has this fantastic move, rook h4, which I did not see in the game. And here, I'm the one being a piece up, but he has 2 pawns, and my king is all of a sudden in some danger. That's actually a pretty fantastic idea, just to sacrifice the piece like this. That's yeah, that's very nice. I generally played g takes f quite quickly out of some general considerations, like h3, g takes f4. It just looks like it's now pretty good for me, and there was no need to look for something better. He played king c2, that's the only move, and now I went for the simplification with knight takes e4, which seemed like it has to be correct. And that is also the case still. Another move I was thinking about was knight e6, where I felt like maybe it's practically speaking a bit more difficult for him, because I'm keeping the tension and he has to watch out for many checks and many different tricks. But I just felt like this should be the way to go, and that's why I played it. Also here, there's also here he has to be careful. I think he mentioned he wants to go rook 81. And yeah, white is not lost or anything, but black should be generally the one who enjoys things here. But this was objectively the best. He took back with the knight, and now was basically my biggest chance in the game, which I missed because I took back on e4 quite quickly. I should have gone for the move bishop f5, and that was quite a big chance which I've missed here. I honestly don't really have a clear explanation why I did not spend more time here. When I was going for this line with knight takes e4, I thought knight takes e4 is sort of forced. And here it was sort of kind of a mental blockade. I thought that maybe he's going to take with the bishop when I thought I'm winning with either knight c5 or knight f2. And if he goes for this endgame, I thought that here at least I have some kind of a non-risk position, and I'm a pawn up for the moment. White needs to work to regain it. But I kind of underestimated his drawing chances here, I think. Maybe I was also simply not alert enough at this point, because bishop f5 actually gives me fantastic winning chances. Now he has to take on f4, and now I can take on e4. And another thing why I did not go for that was now the move g4. But I was not too careful with my calculation here, because it turns out I can just take on e5. And if bishop takes e5, just bishop g6, and all of a sudden he has no ways to go out of these discovered checks, like for example knight g5 or knight d2. If king b3, there's knight d2 as well, forking the king and the bishop. If king c1, there's knight f2, for example, attacking the rook and preparing knight d3 with another fork. And if he takes here, then I have the double attack on the king and the rook. So this would have been a really great chance. At this point, he has to go for this g takes f5. This is his best chance, but like this position is, I think practically speaking, this would be very close to lost. I can go rook d8, for example. His king is in so much danger. Bishop e5 is coming. Like if I look at this, it just looks basically completely lost here, because there's no way really for him to survive with his king, especially with opposite colored bishops. And I could have gotten this by force actually in the game, so I don't think he has anything better. Computer here gives bishop g4, which might be a better try. And now what do? I guess I have to take on e5 again. Bishop takes f5, and this position, yeah, that is certainly a better version because he doesn't have the pawn on f5. But still, it would be quite scary for him. Probably should be a draw with best play. But bishop g4 is maybe also not such an easy move to spot. Another question is if I take here and go f5, because if he goes knight e5, then I can take and go rook d2. He has knight h6 still. Bishop h6, bishop h6, and yeah, it's probably okay for him. By the way, there was another very interesting line here, which I checked with the engine. With my stronger engine, which was at this point after bishop f5, bishop takes f4 to go for rook d4, which is another very interesting option. Now he has to go for king c3 to try and unpin. Actually, now I'm seeing that I could go for rook d3 here with a repetition, because he cannot take because of the pin. Generally, all of the pieces are kind of in the middle of the center. It's quite a funny situation. What did I want to say here? I think it was rook takes e4 here. Generally, there are quite a couple of interesting ideas here, but rook takes e4, bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, and here also white is in a lot of danger. King b3, rook e8. I'm an exchange down, but still my pieces are playing so well together. I think this was the line I was looking at. And now there are a couple of options. Rook d6, for example, was one way to try and continue the attack, with some ideas with rook b6, like it looks incredibly scary. Computer was holding this when I was checking it now, but didn't seem like a lot of fun for white. So I'm quite upset that I that I missed this chance here. Like, it was really not that difficult, and I should have just spent a little bit more time here. Generally, like, I was trying to simply play a bit faster today, which, yeah, which I did manage. But then at this moment, I should have taken the time and realized that it's more of a critical moment. So instead I went into this endgame, and actually there's not really much to play for black here. If I would have like a couple more moves and I'm able to consolidate, then I can maybe consolidate my extra pawn, but I'm simply not in time for that, and my opponent defended the rest of the game very precisely. Rook a1, king g7, bishop d3, rook e8, protecting the bishop on e5. Rook f1, now bishop d7. Bishop d2, bishop c6, and now another pretty annoying move, which was bishop e4, because I was hoping for him to take on f4, which is probably also draw, like this. Cannot take on g2 because of rook g4, but I thought after h5 I at least have some practical chances. Computer is giving 0-0 here, but in the game I thought that this could go wrong for him. Like, of course he can go for this h5 pawn here, like this, but with low time I thought I might have some tricks here. But yeah, now rook h7 is also coming, so there's probably nothing more here. Like, only if white plays passively like this, like rook f2, rook e3, and tries to protect everything like this, well, maybe still a draw, but now I can slowly try to improve my position and at least pretend to do something. So I was hoping for that, but he played the move bishop e4, which was very good. And after that, I just have nothing left. I sort of have to take bishop d6, otherwise he takes on f4. Took on e8 and king d3, and now he's actually threatening to take on f4. If he takes immediately, then I have rook e2, followed by rook takes g2, or taking first and then rook e2. But after king d3 is threatening to take, so now I went for this. Rook d8, he has to go king e2, and now we made the draw here. There's just nothing really much for me left to do, because yeah, if I don't do that, he's gonna take on f4 when he even has the better pawn structure. Like, it's also a draw there, but I just didn't see any chance now to play for a win, so that's why I offered a draw at this point. So yeah, what can I say? Opening went really well, and this was just a chance which I needed to use. Like, the most annoying thing is that I was really optimistic at this point, like after g5, which was a pretty nice move. Also played the game quite quickly up until this point, like so it was going quite well, and then I had this pretty big chance, also a lot of time on the clock, and I just didn't use it. So a bit upset about that, but yeah, the tournament is still long, and there's surely more chances for me to take. And most importantly, it looks like the team is winning, so that's another important thing for me as well, that the team is performing well and that we're going to stay in the league, and that hopefully I'm going to be able to play next year once again. I really like this Croatian league. If I can give you some details behind it, like the hotel is very, very nice. It's a 4-star hotel right on the sea, with very good food. Like, especially the breakfast and the dinner is fantastic. Like, there are also many tourists actually staying at this place, mostly some pensioners who are here for vacation. Many of them are driving with a car, like from Austria or Germany, to here, and just enjoying some vacation. So just a perfect place, and always really happy to play in this Croatian league. Really enjoy it. So that was it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown of this game, and yeah, stay tuned for the King's Indian course. I will inform you guys once it's out. And as you can see, it does also work on this level against an opponent with 2460. I got a very good position out of the opening. So yeah, really looking forward to have the course released as soon as possible. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm going to see you guys tomorrow.